is profoundly ugly.
Not me.
Yeah. You look so fucking goofy.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm balding.
Oh my god. I can't focus. Hey guys, this is Mike Calkins. This is the Scared Stiff podcast. We're here talking about lots of horror and fun stuff, maybe other things down the road. This is our first recording, so we hope you enjoy it. This is my co-host Scott Noyes.
Just going for the throat.
Nice blanket.
Yeah, dude, it's all about the movie we're talking about today, Space Jam.
Only 1/3 of the people watching this will actually
get up and slam.
Oh my god. How you doing?
Pretty good, dude. Had a pretty decent day. I was with you.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm excited. Evil Dead's one of my favorite franchises, and everyone talks about how great the first one is, and that's the one we're going to be talking about today. But primarily, I'd love to talk about a lot of things that I love, and unfortunately, am not too hot on. But at the same time, express why this film is so good. It's created certain things like, not just the film franchise, but a musical, video games have spawned from it. That show that happened on Stars wouldn't happen without the first film, especially. And I think there's so many reasons why people can latch on and love the Evil Dead franchise. And I can't wait to talk about that.
Me too. It's just amazing considering the humble beginnings of this franchise, because this movie, it took 2 years to film because they had to spread it out over multiple tries. And it's such a low budget film. I mean, its budget was $350,000 and it exploded into this, it's not like the highest profile franchise in the world, but it's something that has a very dedicated following. And it's about, like you said, so many different types of media, comic books too. And it's just insane that this tiny little film became what it was.
I can't believe you hit me with that. I can't believe you hit me with the one I didn't mention. It was comic books. That's kind of fucked up. But yeah, I mean, the thing that's so great about the budget is that unfortunately it shows. Sometimes certain things don't come up to par, and the budget is super prominent by saying we can do a lot of great things with this budget, but some things do falter. But the best thing about that is that I know I still love this movie. And if I can still love it with problems like that, you really realize that sometimes not everything has to look amazing. Not everything has to be perfect. And that's totally cool.
And that's kind of the nice thing about this movie. While I was watching it today, I was thinking to myself, wow, this movie strikes the perfect balance of that 80s cheese and actual legit malevolent atmosphere, especially when you get to the cabin. Yeah, I mean, honestly, from the first frame with the music and the way that the title card comes up is a little cheesy, but it just strikes this balance because despite the fact that it is cheesy, some of the acting is a little but it still maintains this relentless tension despite that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best thing about it, really. I think this movie, along with a lot of other popular ones like Halloween, Friday the 13th, really showcase not just what you can do with a low budget, but most prominently, what you can do with a well fleshed out score.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I think the score really sells on not just how powerful it makes scenes feel, but really how much you can do with so little. Because there's not a whole lot of in-depth notes that really take a piano player oh, I gotta learn this. It's gonna take a few months. But what you do here feels so enticing and dramatic. And that's what I kind of love about horror scores in general, is that it isn't super difficult, but finding the way to have a small balance to strike fear, yet also be very alarming and start out calm. It's so cool because you get so much mixed emotion in these scores.
I found it. It's another thing I thought while I was watching it was like Halloween, and I even referenced that in the notes I was taking. Like Halloween, this movie benefits from the simplicity of it, including the music. The music's very simple. The story is very simple. But in that simplicity, what you get instead is a director who can really come in and really make a mark with his flair. And I mean, one of the most undeniable tenets of this franchise from beginning to end has been just the quality of craftsmanship as far as directing, cinematography, editing. Like it's a very well made movie. It has some actually innovative camera moves and methods that no one had really done up to that point.
Oh yeah, 100%. There's the way he does his cinematography where it feels like something's attacking you or running. I can't name a film before that where I can notice that type of effect. And I know people really think of Sam Raimi and think of these films when they think of that type of movement, because there are films that emulate it nowadays. I mean, when I was in college, I had to do a short film with my buddy, and when we were doing one of the scenes, it was kind of like a whole joke on like Aladdin or whatever. But when we use the object that like summons the genie, the way he used it, he did the same effect of how Sam Raimi would charge into and break into a room. And it's like,
Yeah.
that's pretty genius. And he wouldn't have done that without this film.
Yeah, and I mean, like that's something that, like, even if you haven't seen Evil Dead, most people, if you've seen anything by Sam Raimi, you've seen his Spider-Man films, and particularly in the second film, during the Doc Ock sequence, it's all Evil Dead. Like all the camera moves are Evil Dead, and it's awesome. But I think the greatest thing about that, and it's something that we will get into more later because it rolls through the entire film, and especially to the final shot, which is one of the best final shots I've seen in a horror movie ever. The cool thing about it is that the camera is speeding through these environments, and it is coming from the perspective of the evil that is attacking these people.
Which also you never see, which is
Exactly.
the best part.
Yeah, because the nice thing about it's theater of the mind. What you're going to interpret that evil as is going to be 10 times scarier than anything Sam Raimi could have shown you. And that's the smart part about it. Again, it's beauty and simplicity. Also, that's also the best part about having like a low budget at times is if you have a filmmaker that will rise to the occasion, you will get smart ideas out of limitations.
That's the biggest thing about limitations in general. It's you only have so much you can do. And that's why you always feel like you have to push your own creativity because you don't have an option at the end of the day. Like either we do this and we get creative about it, or it's just game over. We can't do anything. And you really see how he did that a lot of times, especially with the special effects, because, there's the one scene in the movie where the hands burst out of like Cheryl and I think Scotty.
Yeah.
And that must have taken so much time, money, and just like planning. I'm pretty sure a lot of the budget and time went into that part because it didn't take a super long time to shoot this film. So when it came to other effects, it's like, all right, let's try claymation. This will be a little cheaper and easier to figure out and do that. And that's why also some effects like the makeup can be stellar in some scenes, but it really falls through in other scenes.
Yeah, I agree. And also the the claymation, which is something again we'll talk about a little bit later. It's kind of amazing that they even did that on the budget that they had. And yeah, it's probably not the best claymation in the world, but it's still undeniably impressive.
I mean, it speaks a lot about me for like being an animation guy. I think it sucks that we don't get claymation anymore. And I do respectably understand that. And I think when people say, oh, it's a shame we don't have claymation, a lot of times it's just not going to mix well. You're not going to have an artist that's that adept to claymation and stuff where they feel strongly about putting it in some films. Not like animatronics. I cannot see a good excuse why some animatronics aren't being used today. Like I think that just comes out being like lazy or just time constraints. Claymation, I get it. Like I love stuff like Clash of the Titans, Jason and the Argonauts, but you don't have a lot of Ray Harryhausen's nowadays. So like,
oh yeah,
it sucks, but you get used to it. But stuff like the animatronics, especially in like the hand I was mentioning before, why don't we have more stuff like that? Like, I'm not an advocate for saying CG doesn't need to be in everything, but there's some times where it doesn't need to be there, and that does suck.
And it's kind of like that's something like again something that this movie is really known for is just how brutal it is at times. It's just the level of gore, and that comes to be part of that. Like by the end of that movie, everyone's a puddle of goop. It's ridiculous. Oh, I should also probably say that this is going to be a
spoilers ahead discussion. Sorry for the late announcement. We fucked up.
Hold anything back, so if you haven't seen it, you should probably watch it first. But yeah, like the entire movie, like just everything is blood soaked by the end of this movie. Like I get why it's rated NC-17 for the gore alone, and just not wanting to cut anything. But yeah, some of the stuff at the end is gross, like actually gross. People are like, it looks like they're like puddles of vomit by the end of the movie. It's crazy.
especially knowing that they didn't have many takes for that. So like you got what you could on it. And
Yeah.
thank God. I mean, some of the angles are as best positioned as they can be because if an actor doesn't sell that, you better damn well have an angle where it doesn't show like it requires a whole lot out of them.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about a lot of positives in the film because you can go on for the positives in this film, but I think it's good to bring up some of the negatives.
Oh yeah.
And this film is fantastic. You couldn't have it and not have the other films afterwards. There are definitely problems in this film. And I think
Mhm.
one of them is the pacing. You have
Yes.
a film that's an hour and 25 minutes, and still it feels like you could lose some time on there.
Yeah. See, so while I was watching it today, I was thinking to myself, wow, there's some shots here where they hold it a bit longer than it really needs to be there for.
Yeah.
It feels like they could have trimmed down some of the shots, like Sam. He lingered on some things that just like when they're walking over to the cellar after the cellar pops up and they're like, oh God, what's going on with the cellar? And they're literally standing over the cellar and the camera holds for another like 3 or 4 seconds more
Yeah.
than it has to.
And I get
Um,
it. Like he does that a lot too for a lot of scenes for trying to depict horror. And a lot of people do it still to this day. But sometimes when everything feels so fast paced, especially with his movies, when
yes.
you get something slow like that, it's like it feels really slow. The whole last like 15 minutes, there's a lot of awesome action, but whenever there's not action, it feels like scenes are really dragging to get to the next action scene.
You see, that's kind of funny because for me, when all the shit just starts going down, when the deadites start showing up, I feel a lot of the time it almost feels not. It's not that it doesn't have moments to breathe because they do stop every once in a while to just breathe, but
Mhm.
for the most part, it feels pretty relentless to me after a certain point. Like maybe after the
Yeah.
first 30, 45 minutes, it's just it doesn't stop. Like it keeps going and getting more and more violence and people just start getting just whacked. Like that's kind of the thing that I admire most about the movie is that after a certain point, it's just hell for
Yeah.
Ash. Like it's just hell from pretty much from when his sister gets possessed on. It's just relentless.
Well, the best thing about that too is that after the sister gets possessed, there's still a good amount of cast that's still like totally
Alive.
coherent, alive, and that like they become very important. And one by one, as they go off, Ash becomes the sole survivor. But even at that point, there's a lot of the runtime's already been gone through. Like you're already halfway done with the film before even another person pretty much gets infected, I'm pretty sure. And
Yeah.
then I mean Scotty doesn't go until what the last 20 minutes, maybe.
Scotty
He's the
when
last one to go.
he's the
Yeah.
last one to get possessed, yeah.
Um,
And he I think he's the last of them to die. Die.
yeah, I mean him and Cheryl pretty much go at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it's kind of impressive because it's like usually in movies they space out deaths in a manner in which that they almost feel rhythmic,
Yeah.
especially in this era. But here, it's almost like it's an avalanche
Yeah.
towards the end because like the only person that dies early on is Linda. No, she actually
Before
doesn't
that,
die though.
yeah, it's Scotty's girlfriend dies first.
That's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
girlfriend. They
yeah.
definitely
The one that like she gets literally
yeah.
no screen time.
And I think the best thing about this film too is it's so polar opposite from all the rest of the Evil Deads because Ash doesn't kill or hurt anyone until well over half the movie.
Oh
Like
yeah,
Scotty does most of the killing, most of the action, and he has to push Ash to do it, which is great because when you're saying to your friends, "Oh yeah, Evil Dead's great, watch it. Ash is a fucking great protagonist or whatever." They're like, "Oh, sick." They're gonna put in this first film, and be like, he's kind of a fucking dumbass. Like he's not
yeah. I
doing
mean that's
anything. Like, but that's great because for a first film, you don't want to feel like he's just like, all right, cool. I'm gonna kill my sister. Like, let's go. Like that's not a great way to start off with
hey. Let me
protagonist.
let me
But
cut
you
my
definitely know.
girlfriend's head off with a chainsaw.
But
Let's
you
go,
definitely know
bro.
by the end, by the more recent entries in the series, when if his sister's a Deadite, he's like, all right, like let's go. But
Yeah,
the
that's
first
kind
one,
of
he can't do anything.
Yeah,
One of the
he's
most
incompetent.
famous scenes is from the second film where, he chainsaws off Linda's head.
Yep.
That's not in the first film, but there's a scene where they show he might do it.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I want to do it. And that's a great way of how the first movie sets up something and delivers on the second one and saying, he does it. This Ash is different. He's gone through some different stuff. And
Yeah.
he's a more, I wouldn't say crazy, but like unpredictable character.
Yeah. To me, actually, two separate points. That scene in particular is one of my favorite scenes in the movie. When he's gonna chainsaw her head off and he can't do it because he sees the necklace that she says at the beginning, like, I'll never take this off. And he, by the way, ugly fucking necklace, but he doesn't
Rude.
want to cut her head off. So it's pretty like it's kind of it's a tragic
Hold on.
moment.
I would agree by saying that I think that's one of the best scenes,
It's tragic.
but the delivery is decent, but I don't know how strongly I'd feel if it wasn't for the other entries in the franchise, because that scene creates the second movie scene where he does do it.
Yeah.
Because that's why this film really does benefit from being a franchise. There's so many films, especially in the 80s, where you may like the sequels, but it doesn't benefit at all from being a franchise. The franchise benefits by making buku fucking dollars, but
Yeah.
like you feel like things are so disjointed and it's forced to work. In this film, they set up scenes like that. So when you have a sequel, it's like we can deliver on that,
Yeah.
almost like how sequels are supposed to be planned out. But they definitely didn't plan for a sequel. Half the movie
No.
is a reshoot of like the first movie, but he still went in there saying, I'm going to make this work. I'm going to deliver on these scenes. And that's
Yeah.
why it's so awesome. And
This kind of thing. I look at the, like, I don't know if this has actually been confirmed by Sam Raimi or anybody. I look at it this way, like, yes, obviously, the reason why the sequel is the way it is because they didn't have the rights.
yeah,
But to me, like, headcanon wise, and I don't usually like headcanon, but headcanon wise, to me, at the end of this movie, the evil rushes him, and to me, the reason why he's so friggin' nuts into is because he has been reliving this over and over again.
okay.
There's nothing to base that off of, absolutely, at all, as far as I know. But I just think that's a really interesting idea and kind of makes the ending more fucked up. But yeah, like that, I like that scene so much because in this movie, especially because it's somewhere in between when the whole, just like the train leaves the station and it just gets relentless. It's a moment to breathe that actually feels earned because it feels like someone he's stopping to have a human moment, and it's something that's not, it doesn't happen that much in this movie. It's mostly just dread.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, not only that, but I think one of my favorite things about having a human moment is that versus the other films, this film having Cheryl be the last Deadite pretty much, besides Scotty, because Linda being there is always something, but Cheryl's his immediate family. It's his sister. For the second movie, that role is replaced by Henrietta, which is the woman's mom. And as great as Henrietta is as a design and like a polar opposite to like Ash in that movie,
Yeah.
and like there's also, the evil Ash, which is, just the exact polar opposite. It's still nice to have a human character who he's related to, and that's the one that lives the longest, even though she's also the first one infected. That's something nice that this film does that the second one doesn't deliver on nearly as much.
One of the things actually I like about Ash is they spend the beginning of the movie. Maybe I'm thinking this up in my head, or I'm overthinking this, but it really doesn't feel like they're pushing Ash as the lead until things start going awry, because they focus more, they follow Scotty more a lot of the time. When they're going into the cabin, they're following Scotty through the cabin. They're not paying attention to him. He's taking initiative where no one else is taking it. It seems like they're almost bait and switching you and giving you the person that is the weakest to push them to be stronger.
Yeah.
And I've always found that kind of a bait and switch interesting.
I think that's true to an extent. I think Scotty has more of an aggressive role in the movie, but I think screen time wise, Ash has more of a center lead, because like when they have the scene with him and Linda, they focus on that more versus Scott doesn't have any human scenes really. He does feel like a headstrong character stereotype versus Ash. They wanted to delve out as being a character versus most of the other actors don't really get to be characters versus just, I'm the girlfriend, I'm the sister, I'm the aggressive best friend. and then I'm the best friend's love interest, you know.
Yeah.
I do agree that he feels like more of an archetype of being the protagonist.
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's great that he does live the longest because, you know, he's doing most of the action. He's taking charge. It wouldn't make sense for him to die right away. When he gets mangled, you don't even see it happen.
Yeah, it
You
happens
know,
on screen.
I'm sure that's a budgetary thing because
Probably.
they're like, dude, what the fuck are we gonna do with this? Like, but at the same time, it does work because you've already seen what happens to Cheryl in the woods. I'm sure some shit happened to Scotty. Hopefully not the same exact thing. That'd be pretty tough for him. But that's another scene we have to talk about is the whole
you can't talk.
rape scene.
You can't not talk about that.
Because I know people feel like it's super necessary and like it's hard to take out of the film. I don't know. Like, I have a tough time with rape on film, and I know a lot of people do, and it's totally fair. I think you could keep the scene in there, but definitely like the whole last clip of penetration, it's not necessary.
Yeah.
And I think it takes away from things, especially in the film. Like sometimes it's better not knowing, but assuming. And this is definitely a case where I feel that's the thing. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but it just feels like it's unnecessary sometimes.
I agree. I think honestly, like that scene, when I saw like that scene began, when she left the house, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This is coming. And even when I watched this movie the first time back in the day on Netflix, I was just like, this scene is
You watched this for the first time on Netflix?
Yeah, dude. I didn't fucking know what this was.
Wait, you didn't know what Evil Dead was when you watched it?
No.
Nobody like recommended it, like, oh, dude, watch the
like I had seen my uncle in the basement, the family room, he had the DVD, this and Army of Darkness. I'd seen the DVD. I didn't know what it was though.
Oh, great.
And I saw Evil Dead, and I'm like, oh, it had like one of those blurbs, like Sam Raimi's first movie or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'll fucking watch this.
Okay, so I know it's not good to do this, but we're segueing because I think it's really cool to talk about your history and just in general the history with Evil Dead, because I didn't know that you didn't know, like you didn't know anything about it before you checked into it, because that's really interesting. Because honestly, didn't give a shit about him being connected to Spider-Man. I was just getting really big into horror movies when I watched it. You know, my mom with somebody who had like a life-size Jason, like animatronic for like Halloween or whatever, big horror nut. But yeah, and he was talking about like loving the Evil Dead films, and I'm like, oh, I'll check them out. Like, are they like super scary? Because when you're a fucking 13-year-old, like the idea of scary is different to everybody. Nobody knows what scary is. Like, well, Evil Dead 2 is really scary, and first one's pretty scary, but
what?
Army of Dark. Hold on, just give me a second. Army of Darkness is like, it's not that scary. I think you could watch that.
Oh.
So the first one I saw was Army of Darkness. And to be fair, the good thing about all these films, you don't really need to see the other ones. Army of Darkness, you should watch the second one first.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
I watched it. I'm like, this is just fucking fun. What's scary about it? And there's the one scene with the witch, but I'm like, that's fine. And he gave me the DVD for Evil Dead 1, the book. The book version,
the Necronomicon. Yeah,
love that one. I still have it, even though it's like tattered and torn to bits, but like,
you shown me it before.
It's so cool. I've watched that thing on replay over and over and over again, and that was my first time seeing it. And I saw it, I'm like, this isn't like terrifying me, I'm just interested. And that's like one of the films that like really got me into horror, because the idea of horror isn't just being terrified, it's about the intrigue, it's about the mystique. The coolest thing about stuff like this is not just lore and background, but like what it makes you creatively do. I see horror movies and I see, wow, they put that type of thing on screen. That's so cool. It has me imagine different things that I could do, different ways to do things, different angles to look at. Like, for filmmakers, for artists, for anybody that has creativity in their brain, a horror film is a great way to jumpstart it. And Evil Dead is one of the best films to jumpstart that.
I agree. Yeah, like just like a brief segue before I answer your question. Man, I miss when special edition like DVDs were that fucking cool.
Oh
like,
yeah,
they don't make shit like that anymore. They rarely do, and if they do, it's overseas, and you have to import it. It sucks
nowadays.
Blu-rays are so boring.
You know, James Rolfe did a video about why he prefers DVDs over Blu-rays.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and
I remember when I saw it, I'm like,
really?
Dude? I saw the thumbnail, and I'm like, you're objectively wrong. Like, DVDs are objectively worse.
Yeah.
But then he's like, well, they were way more fun. I'm like, I mean, you're fucking right.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like watching the video, I'm like, come on, man. Like, why would he say that? And it's like, you know, you used to get a box set and like, you know, the screen would just show different things or like it'd be interactive. I'm like, do you know how much I fucking miss interactive menus?
Yeah.
If you got the fucking Harry Potter films, you could go through Hogwarts on the
Yeah.
fucking menu.
It was so
Nowadays, it's like
cool.
you get a fucking stupid goddamn like
It's a basic ass, just a
getting that. I
menu.
think
It
it's so
says
bad. You get a gradient menu where it's like play, menu, scene
scene
selection.
selections.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, oh,
So
sick
boring.
scene selection, special features. What's the special features? Oh, it's a gallery. Oh, you have a fucking gallery. Like, that's sick.
Yeah.
I can look at screenshots of the fucking movie I'm gonna watch. Sick gallery.
Yeah, like that's kind of basically like back in the day they put money into like actually when you get a DVD and you get a special feature, there's actually a special feature. Like you'll actually get like back on the day like Jurassic Park, the DVDs for Jurassic Park, they had like an hour and a half documentary on each movie. It's like that's ridiculous. And that like that happens sometimes nowadays, but not often. But yeah, we're getting way off track. But to answer your question,
No, we're not. Here,
okay.
I'm gonna show you. This is gonna be the gallery for the podcast. This is
shit.
me for my senior year. Here's a gallery of Duracell. Cool. You just saw the fucking entire gallery for a Warner Brothers menu. Like that's how it is nowadays.
Every single one of them is
Yeah,
just a
it
static
sucks.
image
Warner
with the same
Brothers-
exact menu bar.
I look good in this photo, but Warner Brothers is like one of my favorite studios when it comes to films, and their menus are dog shit. It's like they said, remember creativity, remember filmmaking, go fuck yourself. No more. We're done now.
They make some amazing films. They make the worst, fucking most dull home releases ever. Like they suck now. They're terrible. Ever since like 2013, they just suck.
I just don't understand why the person in charge of menus is a fucking graphic designer from 2001. Because it bewilders me how even that, if you're gonna make some dog shit menu, at least make it look like something that came out nowadays. Yeah. It's a Blu-ray. Blu-rays what came out 2007, 2006?
Yeah, when the PS3 came out.
Yeah, so and they never updated the entire process of like, oh yeah, a play button. Maybe keep it like one color tone. No, it's a fucking gradient blue. Like, who does that?
It's kind of crazy.
Like it's like he just learned fucking Microsoft PowerPoint.
Like there's early Blu-rays that have like at least they have like they play clips during the menu or something. Like at least they have something moving. But like now, especially Warner Brothers, like they're just all static images. Like if I have an OLED TV, I'm gonna be afraid it's gonna burn into the fucking screen. Like it's ridiculous.
Like imagine you're getting a movie and it's Evil Dead, and you think of all the action that happens on screen, and it's like, yeah, things take time to build. And then just imagine you had a static image of Ash's shot where he goes like, and that was the entire menu screen. And you're like, yeah, do I want to fucking press play? I don't think so. Like
to be fair, the 4K is literally just a static image of that iconic shot of her putting her hand up.
And like, that it's cool. Sucks. Like it's like it is cool. Like
no, the coolest part.
I got it on a fucking blanket.
Like, actually, the coolest part of that whole thing is I think that a little bit of lightning strikes the screen. That's sad that that's what it is. Crash zoom on your face.
Oh, but like, I don't know, man. It drives me wild that you have people in charge of creative projects, and they said, "Hey, man, I have the brain of a fucking tortoise as he's going to get his fucking shell bashed in. So I'm not going to put any effort into this, and you could just die."
All right, Cannibal Holocaust.
Hey, you and I both know
that actually happens.
That yet.
I think. I heard.
That's
like,
why I don't.
There's animal death in it.
All right. Well, that's one of them. I already started off this episode by saying I haven't seen Cannibal Holocaust. So that's a bad start. But at the same time, that's one
I
of
haven't either.
I haven't seen it.
I don't have any interest in it. Like,
maybe we'll do an episode where we have to both watch it and we'll just talk about it and just be either upset or just glowing.
Yeah, I mean,
I've gone to literally a bunch of conventions, horror, and even the comic ones, and like people have said, like, yeah, it's tough, get to it, and I don't know, and especially like people talk about how like the violence can be in vain with like some of the Evil Dead franchise. Can't agree or disagree because haven't seen it.
Haven't seen it, but I'll say this: I feel like it's something that I'm gonna watch it and be like, it's really not that bad. I hope I'm probably. I don't know if I hope I'm wrong or not, but anyways, getting back on track.
Dead, yeah.
You were asking me my history with the franchise. Literally, I was scrolling through Netflix and I saw it there, and I knew I had seen the DVD before, and I like. Obviously, I remember like Bruce Campbell's in all 3 Spider-Man movies and all that stuff. Like he just shows up in all of Sam Raimi's stuff. and I never really thought about it. And I saw it come up. I read the description for it, and I saw it was Sam Raimi's first movie or whatever. And I'm like, I mean, I'm gonna watch that. Like, that sounds
Mhm.
cool. And I just sat there and I watched it, and I was just in awe the entire movie.
When you first saw it, did it like
I was
super
14.
grab you? It was like, oh, this is
Oh yeah,
unbelievable, or did it
it
take a
had me
few
by
times to really hit? Because like,
it had me by the throat the first time I watched it.
because I know a lot of people have that reactions with some films. Like I've said before, like I didn't love Texas Chainsaw when I first saw it, but now if you
I
ask
didn't
me, like
either.
Texas Chainsaw is one of my favorite horror movies ever.
Oh, it's one of the
Um,
greatest films ever made, in my opinion.
I mean, Evil Dead, the first one, it's not my favorite. Like my favorite one's the second one because the biggest thing that you feel like with this movie, and I bet Sam Raimi would agree, don't want to speak for the man, but he really showcases horror well, but he really has an understanding for comedic elements, and that sometimes things that are supposed to be serious in this film almost blend into comedy. And he said, well, if that's going to happen, let's have some comedy. And Evil Dead 2 capitalizes
And
on
it
that
works.
100%.
It lives in slapstick. I mean, like, even in this one, like they have moments where they kind of like, you
The
could tell
bookshelf
it's,
falling on him,
yeah. I mean, like, that's,
like
I don't
that
think
feels like
that
slapstick. It's not
I don't
supposed to be, I don't think, but it
I, was
feels
like,
like
I
it.
don't find that to be slapstick, but I'll tell you, like, every time he gets fucking coated in blood, it's definitely a joke.
Yeah.
Like, he just absolutely gets coated in blood in a ridiculous amount of it.
Yeah.
Like, his girlfriend's blood spurts all over his face and in his mouth. Like, it's so fucked up, but it's funny. And it's just like, that's kind of thing, like the whole running joke, and it's kind of sad because it's like it's actually real. Is like the whole movie, Sam Raimi, the whole joke for the audience is, I'm just gonna beat the shit out of my star for just whatever I want to do.
Yeah. And he says that too. He's on a few podcasts where he talks about that. And with his reactions to something, they're just innately funny sometimes.
Yeah,
Like
he's
there's
got a
times
very
where like
animated face.
Cheryl will like reach for his head and he's like, oh, and it's like, that's awesome. I'm laughing, but you're also in a terrible position right now. And I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's
But
fucked.
dude, come on. You look like that. Like he really grasps him and Bruce Campbell are the perfect duo because he knows what his director wants, and the director almost builds a scene for Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, and usually it's a scene to beat the shit.
Yeah, poor guy, man.
Dude, I was watching. I even put it in my notes, man. When he gets thrown into that bookshelf, I'm sitting there looking like, man, I really hope he doesn't have like permanent fucking brain damage from that. Like, it's just like he gets
Yeah.
clobbered constantly in this movie. He
It's
gets his ass kicked.
that's
And
so
there's
funny
no.
though.
They're like, yes, they're
The
like,
way he
hey,
falls, dude. It's
do we
like
have stuntmen? What stuntmen?
like the way he just
Like,
shings his arms, like, oh man,
it's like that, and
do
then
it
like
again. Like
he gets thrown through furniture. All like, oh my god, the things that he has to do. It's so fucked up. And it's like, there's no stuntmen because they don't have money for that
yeah.
shit. So like he's just getting thrown through actual real, like, getting hit. Like, that bookshelf's hefty. Like, look at that thing. That thing is hefty. And
Yeah.
that thing landed on his body. like Jesus Christ. I mean, hey, it sells. It really works for the movie.
Yeah.
Everything feels really brutal because it is.
Yeah, for sure. You just feel bad for him because nobody else has to deal with that shit. At
Yeah,
least not
he's the
the
only
level of
person.
him.
He's the only, save for, like, I think someone gets hit with a lamp, and that's like the worst thing. Like, he's the one, he gets
Yeah.
the most punishment
I
easily.
think Linda gets some shit that happens to her too.
Yeah.
There's the scene where Cheryl hits her too and she goes flying.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
So
sure Cheryl didn't have fun with the whole, tree scene.
I don't have fun with the whole tree scene.
So yeah, none of us do. I don't think anybody
That's
does.
so not true, man.
I don't
I
want
know
to think
people.
about that,
I know
though.
people love that scene, and like people. Oh well, just me saying that, like, yeah, I think it's just too much sometimes. People are like, you're a dumbass. It's like, yeah, I'm a dumbass, but it's not for that opinion. Like, that does linger for a bit, and like, it's a lot of times less is more. A lot of great horror films, it's like sometimes you don't have to show it, and it makes a bigger difference.
If
A
that
lot of times in horror
scene,
movies, you don't see shit happen. You don't see someone get brutally murdered the way you think you do. And in this scene, I didn't need to see someone get penetrated by a tree. The fact I'm already thinking about it, that's tough enough, let alone
yeah.
actually seeing it happen.
And it's like, oh yeah, it's like Alien with the allegory for impregnating her with the evil or whatever. And it's
Yeah.
like, I get that. That's fine. I understand the symbolism and the
Yeah.
weirdness to it. But if you
Yeah.
just panned the camera up and filmed her reaction rather than seeing the actual fucking penetration, it
Exactly.
would literally be a more disturbing shot, in my
Like,
opinion.
I don't want the scene gone. I'm not saying get rid of it. Yeah, personally, not a big, like I said, not big on whole rape
Oh,
in film, but like this, the scene serves a purpose. You just don't have to show that penetration happening. That's the only thing.
yeah, and it's also, I mean, like it's his first movie. He was learning and
Yeah,
all that stuff, and it's something like he's never done anything like that again.
yeah.
So like
And like
I
it's
mean,
weird to say,
it's
but it
also
is a
not a
nitpick.
studio film
Yeah,
either. It's like it's not a studio film, so it's
yeah,
like he can do whatever the fuck he wants.
yeah, for sure.
Um, so like when we get to Evil Dead 2, like I mean, honestly, no, I mean Evil Dead 2 is still in the 80s, so like it's a little bit different. But like
Yeah,
you get to Evil Dead 2013, they still kind of do that. They
yeah,
don't show it, but like they kind of still do that. So like you could probably still do it, but there's definitely a more I hate to use the word artistic, but there's a better way to do that scene
yeah,
than doing it like that, in my
yeah,
opinion. If you like it, whatever, that's fine.
yeah. And like I
But
get it. Like I
yeah,
totally get it.
some
I'm
people
not
just like the
saying
unrelenting, just like raw,
that because
disturbing factor
that's
to
the
it.
energy of the film. It
Yeah,
feels raw, and that's like that's why I said like I get it. I'm not saying people would be wrong for liking that. It's just a personal thing. That last image a little too much. You could do
yeah,
without it. Changes nothing. But like you said, raw is the perfect way to have it for some people, and I get it. It's just not for me. And like I said, it's weird to say, but to me, that is a nitpick. It doesn't ruin the movie. I still love this movie. It's just one small thing that takes me out of it. Immediately, though, I get brought back right back into the film, so it doesn't really make a difference. So
yeah. At the end of the day, it's a moment in a film that is not that big of a deal. It's just
yeah,
something that sticks out. I I kind of want to circle back though. I don't want to talk about just the plot of this in general though, because we kind of glazed over all that, and I think that like this movie lays the groundwork for what this franchise would eventually be just by introducing the concepts that it has of the Kandarian daggers, the Kandarian demons, the or Deadites, the Necronomicon, all that stuff, bringing that all yeah, in that big, there's a big exposition scene where they play a tape recorder, and it's a little bit of a crutch, but it really works because the narrator does such a good job just making it really creepy. But I think the again, beauty and simplicity that this whole movie hedges on the fact that they just came up to the cabin for a weekend, and that's kind of the maybe the part of the most disturbing part about it is just like they were just trying to have a fun weekend. And because
stupid teenagers. Fun
stupid
sucks.
Scotty's a fucking idiot. I literally wrote down in my notes because they did the scene where Ash is trying to give his speech at dinner. I said Ash is a fucking doofus, and literally not 5 minutes later, Scotty does something that's like just him just being it's the scene when they're going into the cellar and she's like, oh,
Oh, that's
maybe there's an animal
awesome.
in there, and he's like,
Yeah,
an
that is so
animal.
stupid. Yeah.
He's like,
But
wow, that's the
that's
stupidest thing I've ever heard. And I'm
but
like, wow, Scott's a fucking dick.
oh, but that scene's perfect because when they adaptate it for the musical, you get
Oh,
the
it's really
best
funny.
number ever. Because an animal, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. God, what a stupid bitch. And that is so fucking funny. Have you heard?
It's the delivery.
I know I've shown you a few bits, but have you heard like the entirety of the musical?
No, and I keep saying like with
Awesome.
musicals, I want to just
Awesome.
it's like I want to watch the musicals. Like they're not
You
doing a
can't.
musical anymore. I
Yeah,
can't
it's
watch it
not.
anymore. So I was like, I just
Yeah.
gotta listen to music at this point.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think it's so funny. It's definitely based on the second movie more because they follow
I
the
have no
whole
doubt.
stuff.
It's
With
also
like
like
Henrietta and
funny.
everything.
So
Yeah. I mean,
um,
obviously, one of the songs about being an S Mart employee and finding love
yeah,
in S Mart, so good. But yeah, that's the stuff that the film does. Like it sets up so much things to be brought back. You brought up like the Kandarian dagger and everything, and the tape recording, which I love the second movie and having the tape recording play a part in it and be a character as like the father. I think it works better as just being narration in the first film. I think with it being narration, it works stronger and it doesn't take away anything. And it has you asking questions
yeah,
and you don't get any answers, which is kind of nice. He even says how like his wife turns into a demon and you don't
yeah.
see it. And that's
It,
awesome,
and it
which is
tells you
even
later. So
better why it happens in the second movie.
it's also how they figure out, you know, the way to finish off a deadite is bodily dismemberment. Excuse it's how they figure that out. Yeah, that's I mean, like it's definitely an important scene. Like I'm not even trying to nitpick it for being exposition. It's just it had to happen that way.
Yeah.
because these are people that, like, they're not related to the whole situation. They're just there. Also, talking about that basement scene. I know we were talking about it earlier today, I think, and the whole, like, they go into the basement and they find all the stuff like the Economicon, the Kandarian dagger, the tape recorder, all stuff, and there's like goddamn Hills Have Eyes poster in the background.
Yeah, I definitely didn't remember that for like the other times I watched her. I just didn't think about it, but that's so funny because it's just there.
The only reason I remembered is because I know that there's like a back and forth between Wes Craven and Sam Raimi, because they do the whole thing where in Nightmare on Elm Street she's watching
Evil
Evil Dead
Dead, yeah.
on the TV. And I think they do it again. I can't remember. I can't remember what they do it with, but it does, they do it more than once. And it's, again, I believe in Evil Dead they do something. But yeah, I always, whenever I rewatch a movie, I see that, I just get a chuckle out of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Just because it's so blatant. I kind of like that about it.
yeah, it's like
Like,
they ripped it, so like maybe they're afraid of getting copyright infringement or something. I don't know.
but it has the
But
entire word there. It's like they ripped the corner. It's like, oh, his head's kind of missing or whatever.
yeah, I mean, you can easily tell what it is, but it's not the
Yeah.
full poster, so maybe they wouldn't get in
Yeah.
trouble for it. But I always found that really amusing.
There's so many funny things in the movie that lead to other stuff. But I think one thing we have to talk about that can be funny unintentionally is the characters more. Like we bring up the whole thing about Sky, like, yeah, it's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But like even some of the stuff with like his girlfriend where she just says random dumb shit, and it's like, yeah, they play up the whole stupid teenager thing, which this film is the reason why I hate stupid teenagers in horror movies, because they have to at least be likable. Linda says some dumb stuff like, hey, I think I have ESP when she's getting all the questions
Yeah, I
wrong.
was literally
And
about
that's
to bring that
great
up. It's stupid. It's really
because she's
funny.
she's stupid, but she's endearing.
Actually, no,
Like,
but there's a really good part about that though, because she's sitting there reading off they have the card, and they obviously put the camera there so you can tell
yeah,
that she's an idiot and she actually isn't
exactly.
reading the card. But the thing is that, like, something that's really funny very quickly becomes scary, because because the
Cheryl.
sister in the corner,
Yeah.
Cheryl, starts actually reading the cards off, and
Yeah.
then turns around, and that's when you finally get that shot of the deadites, and the horror really
The way
begins.
she monologues it too is perfect.
It's creepy.
Like, especially because the way it's paced, it's like a song, like how it speeds up ever so slightly, and it's like, all right, dude, calm down, please.
Yeah, it definitely is dread inducing, and that's kind of like one of the things, like it's like they show you the inkling of brilliance that the same, I mean, like the whole movie's, especially technically is brilliant for Sam Raimi, so the whole movie is like that. But as far as being somebody who really just showcases horror in a very, very like visceral way, it's one of those moments where it's like, he can do both, just because in the same exact scene he flips the switch,
Yeah.
and it just gets relentless after that. There's no more, well, there's still humor, but it's very, very dark.
Yeah, there is still humor though. I think that's the only not problem, but I think people need to realize I don't think Sam Raimi can go back to just full on horror. Like this film was him saying like, wow, I have a strength with this. I kind of have to utilize it because if I don't, I think my film might like structurally suffer.
Yep.
And I think this film was a great way of running that test that like sometimes he's just naturally gets humor or he naturally gets timing. So he can't lose that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the humor wasn't in this movie, and yeah, it's dark humor.
Yeah.
Him getting
Wouldn't
coated with
work
his
sometimes.
his girlfriend's blood is dark humor by
Yeah.
definition. Without that, I think this movie would be anxiety inducing, at least back then.
I
It's not
think
so
some
much
of it would
anymore.
fall flat too, though, because the humor doesn't just add levity, but it adds like charm to it too.
Yeah, I mean, like it would it might get numbing after a while.
Yeah.
If it was just pure horror, because I mean, there's movies that do that. I mean, literally Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
There's
Um,
humor in Texas
a
Chainsaw, though,
little
quite a
bit.
bit, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, but like what, again, like this movie, there's a certain point where it's not funny anymore.
Yeah.
Even if Toby Hooper thought it was funny, it's not funny.
Yeah.
I think that sometimes you need something to break that tension, because there's a point where you're gonna just make people numb to the horror. And again, like with that scene with everyone in that room and they're reading the cards up, like the whole movie, they're still building up to that big reveal. They're still building up to all that. The switch flipping is what really makes that scene work and makes the transition into the full on horror work. And so when they're flipping back and forth, it's A, keeping you on your toes, and B, it's making it so it's not one blanketed tone. and it's not shifting too much out of the horror because it's still like the imagery is still fucked up, like someone's coated in blood, like it's still messed up.
Not just that, also to go back to like some of the characters and stuff. The characters are fun and they have to be somewhat endearing. A lot of times you see movies where like they make teenagers just like fucking unlikable. And I mean all of them are unlikable. It's like, oh yeah, that way when they die, you like it.
Jason Goes to Hell.
They're not even teenagers, which is the worst part though.
True, they're
They're
adults,
all
but
full grown dumbasses.
which makes it worse.
Yeah, no, 100%. I hate that movie, especially with this being Evil Dead somewhat have a connection with the movie because the Necronomicon's in there. It's like, hey, guess what? I don't care if it's in the movie. Your movie still fucking sucks ass. You need to
Don't
have someone
besmirch my Evil Dead.
because he's like, oh, well, Jason can be like a deadite. It's like, yeah, no, he fucking can't, dude. Shut up.
Yeah, like
Whatever.
but that doesn't matter if fucking Ash isn't the one who shows up at the end. So like, why does it matter?
Yeah, I mean, like, I know a lot of the setup for Freddy versus Jason, they were definitely talking about having Ash in the film, but
Yeah, they actively wrote a script for it. That's why I made the comic out of
yeah,
it.
and I think that's cool. And I think it's the only way to really finalize by saying, hey, yeah, if we have a protagonist like Ash, you don't mind if Freddy and Jason die, but still people be kind of pissed off about it.
Instead, we got no one wins.
Yeah. But even besides that, characters.
Yes.
A lot of them can be stereotypes. Most of them are stereotypes. Scotty's significant other, girlfriend, or love interest, or just girl he's with.
She arguably doesn't have a character.
No, she really is just that.
Another
just,
girl.
Exactly. Scotty is the headstrong, aggressive, like carefree archetype character who would sometimes mostly be the lead, but in here gets switched out with Ash because, hey, what do you know? The sensitive guy has to learn to like not just take care of himself, but watch out for everyone else around him. And
fail.
Friends are his enemies.
Yeah.
And that's great. Ash is the one who's a full fleshed out character. I think if you just watch the first half of the film, you could probably really not like Cheryl. Be like, okay, she's getting kind of insufferable. Knowing the actress does the total 180 when she becomes a deadite, it's like you'd think it's a different actress entirely.
Yeah.
It's played perfectly.
She's really scary. I mean, like, honestly, actually, now I think about it, like, I was gonna say, like, oh, all the Deadites are cool, but like, really, honestly,
No.
it's just Cheryl and Linda. And like
I
Linda,
think
like,
Linda can get annoying when she's a deadite.
I find her.
She's meant to be. I definitely feel that.
Oh yeah, she's supposed to be. And that's when he fucking gets up and duffs her like 3 times. I find her just sitting in the corner there, not corner, but sitting in the doorway, cross-legged, freaking laughing like a hyena. That's nightmare fuel. I mean, it gets better. Like she does get annoying, but yeah, that is the point.
Yeah, it's definitely the point. It's just sometimes it's a little much. Like when they drag her through the woods the first time, it's like that's great, and I like that scene. But there's a lot of times where she's just in there with Ash, and there's a lot of laughing. It's like, I get it. I know what you're doing. Tone it down, and we can progress. And it just feels like ha 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 ha. It's like even Cheryl taunts her more. I wish Linda, being the girlfriend, would have more scenes where they taunt her. I don't know if like they didn't trust the actress to do it, or Sam Raimi's like, yeah, I don't really care about that right now. We don't have time to like flesh it out. But it feels like she does just become like, yeah, she just laughs, and like it's terrifying. And the fact that she was the girlfriend is enough. It's like, yeah, it's really not though. Sometimes when you feel like Ash could be more invested and more hurt if you have Linda saying some mean shit, or Linda really showcase, like they have the scene where like she switches back to human Linda, and it's like, oh yeah, that's sweet. That's a nice moment. I like how, if you know the franchise, you expect it to happen. It happens in every movie now. But when that first happens, you're 45, maybe an hour into the film when it happens. It's like, oh, cool. I didn't know that was going to happen. It doesn't happen again after that, which is perfect. One time is enough.
Yeah.
But there should have been other scenes where just have Deadite Linda taunting Ash. Really attack that. It would have showed him break down more. And, I'm not saying have a crazy runtime, but less laughing, more talking. That's all I would have liked a little bit more.
You wouldn't have to really change runtime so much as just give her lines.
Yeah, even if you don't have Ash responding, just having her say some shit as she's getting dragged or whatever.
She does a little bit, like when they're outside, when he's burying her, but not a lot. And mostly her contribution is the admittedly creepy, like, we're gonna get you, not another peep, time to go to sleep.
Yeah.
So she doesn't really get a whole lot to do. other than laugh like a fucking hyena. But I think it's more so the image that makes me creeped out than anything else. And like talk about like those contacts. They like from what they said on set, like they were really uncomfortable
Oh
and
yeah,
about.
it hurt a lot for a lot of their eyes.
Yeah. And like, hey,
Because
good for that. They were
I
champs.
think it's like the way they crafted it. They were saying how like it wasn't meant to be like that. So like a lot of the eyes were just burning when the contacts were in. So like they couldn't
Yeah.
have them in for too long because it was just insufferable.
I think it was. I think like, I don't know if they had like the solution to clean them or something. Like there was something really like yikes
Yeah.
about that. Also like the blood that they used for the movie. I can't remember what they because I read the book the first book that's written by Bruce Campbell. I can't remember what the name of it is. It's If Chins Could Kill is one of them, and then there's another one.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I don't know how to read, so like I
There,
can't give you firsthand information.
there's two autobiographies that
Why'd you
he's written
laugh?
because you can't read.
That's just kind of fucked up.
It's true. I know there's a video there's a
Is
movie
If
he
Chins
did
Could Kill the new one though?
so it's if My Name is Bruce is a movie.
I know that's a movie. I know it
If
was
Chins
he
Could
did a
Kill is
book
the first
too,
book.
though, I think.
Yeah, if
Is
Chins
If
Could
Chins
Kill is
Could
the
Kill
first
is
one.
the first
The
book?
second one is Hail to the Chin.
Because
And I've listened to both of them.
he did a new book recently because when I went to the signing to get him to autograph the Necronomicon, he was talking about like, oh, he was having like people sign for the book, or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that's great. Love to get your book. I brought the fucking Evil Dead book. I'm not just gonna not get that signed.
Yeah, the second book, Hail to the Chin came out like 2017. So it was rather
Oh,
new, I think, when you went
then
there.
yeah. Because I think I saw
Um,
him 20. Was it 2019?
yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah. It was
yeah.
2019.
The first book came out in like 1999 or
Oh yeah.
2000.
I know that was
So
nowhere near.
yeah, but like in that book, they discussed Evil Dead. Obviously, is a huge part of the book. Like this movie took a long time to shoot because they shot most of it and then they ran out of money, so they had to come back and shoot it. That's why they started shooting it like 78, I think, late 78 and then into 79, and then it came out in 80. And they were talking about the fucking blood mixture that they used. I can't remember what they used in it, but it is foul. And
Yeah.
he was like coated in it, and he was talking about how like it coated his pants and like froze. Like,
Oh
it coated him
yeah.
head to toe, and it was like it was horrible. And he was like trying to shower it off, he couldn't get it off. It just sounded so unpleasant, and it sounded exactly like a Sam Raimi movie. It was just I hear him talk about like after watching this now, because like I haven't seen Evil Dead since I read the book. So I read the book and then now I've seen it, and I'm watching him get coated in the blood, and I'm just thinking about how horrible it was for him, and I feel even worse for Ash. So
That's another thing about horror films is a lot of fucking actors go through some terrible shit for a low pay and because the film
yeah,
has a low budget. And
and
it
possibly
sucks,
no
but it
return
works really well.
for some. It feels bad for like the ones that like they go through hell for a movie that doesn't do well.
Yeah. Oh, dude, speaking of films that don't do well, have you watched the movie Demon Wind? It's very much
No,
meant to be like a
you
ripoff of
showed
Evil
me a
Dead.
clip when we
Oh,
were
that
doing
shit is so
bro
good.
when we were doing our at the time we only did it for 2 years, but our yearly like watch a horror movie every day. You were
Yeah.
watching that at work on
Oh
lunch, and you
yeah.
showed it to me. You showed me like I think it's
So
like 10
funny.
minutes of it, and I'm like, I have to go. Like,
Oh man, it's so funny. It's such like a bad movie, but I'd say sometimes it's so bad, just stop. Not so bad, it's good. But
yeah,
there's some stuff like
wasn't it with Joe
Girl,
Bob Briggs though?
yeah. I mean, if it's gonna be
That
a
would be
bad
fun.
movie, I gotta have him like give me
That'd
like a
be
few
fun. Although
interludes
it
and a few
like doubles the
breaks.
runtime though. Like it makes
Oh,
it
it's
so
worth
long.
it. It's funny because he doesn't
I
mention it
bet.
being like Evil Dead. He's like, yeah, it's kind of like Friday. It's like this is 100% Evil Dead. There's like a book where it like brings in demons and every. This is 100% Evil Dead. The main character's got like a girlfriend and it's like, oh, she shows her ass or whatever, and they're together. It's like, yeah, but like the best friend character, that movie is so homoerotic. Like those dudes are fucking. They're straight
Yeah.
up fucking. Because it's like when the girl's gone, he's just like, damn. But like when the boy, like when his like best friend's going, like, hey man, you mean a lot to me, and like no matter what, like our bond is never gonna be broken. I'm like, hey, I'm all for like you guys, but like this film needs to acknowledge they're gay. Like they're definitely gay.
So what you're saying is it's like Nightmare on Elm Street too.
Yeah.
Maybe
But
slightly
like,
less.
I don't think the best friend in that movie is nearly as like
No, he's not
homoerotic.
participatory. I don't think he's like he's
No,
not.
but in Demon Wind, dude, they just mesh well. You know, they're cute. They're cute
they,
together.
they
It's all
just vibe.
right.
They're just vibing, bro.
Why can't Ash have a cute boyfriend?
It's Scotty,
He's dead.
and he abandons him. That's another thing. So like
I like
I,
that scene where he
I
says, like, get your own girlfriend, take care of her. It's like good because I think it's a realistic trait, especially with that character.
yeah. I see. Like when I was watching it, I was just like, "Fuck you!" Like you're an
Good.
asshole.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking about it. I'm like, you know what? When you're in a situation like I've never been in a situation like that.
Yeah.
But if you're in that situation and you think about it, you're like, my girlfriend's. I killed my fucking girlfriend,
Exactly.
and so it's like I'm just desperate now. I'm out of here, dude. Like I
Yeah.
can't do it. I killed my fucking girlfriend. What am I gonna do? Like I'm
Dude.
gone. See ya.
It
You're
Ash
good. Every man for itself. Goodbye.
if Ash was smart, he would
So
have trained quads, picked up Linda, and then just ran a marathon. Because
yeah, but when
like
you see what happened to Scotty, maybe you shouldn't do that.
it's not my fault they fucking don't do leg day.
That's kind of like actually that kind of reminds me because like a lot of times during the movie, like I think Scotty gets his leg scraped up, or it was one of the girls maybe, like the dead eye
That happens to Ash.
shit.
Ash
Like,
gets
it
his
happens to somebody else too
Linda
though.
scratches Ash a lot, and then Cheryl does
Yeah,
it later on again in the film. How he
yeah,
has a functioning leg beyond me.
yeah. But my thing though is that that's kind of how like the evil was transferred. Like people were getting scratched up and stuff, and like the
Yeah,
evil was transferring people to people. So I'm thinking about like the ending of this movie is fucked. But thinking about it now, even if the evil didn't come through the house to get his ass, he's dead. It's over.
that is assuming.
Possibly.
The way I look at it is you could headcanon it for 100% because the way the movie ends, it's like they have tracking shots that show the evil before the book even gets talked about. So
Yeah.
how lethal that evil is, or whatever, if it's like the same amount of like the penetration with that happens to Cheryl, who knows? So maybe it's just like a demonic wind for all we know. You could say that when he destroys the book, he destroys the evil, so Ash wouldn't be infected anymore. You could
Perhaps.
say that, but who
I
knows?
just think like you might be completely right. Maybe that's Sam Raimi's intention. I don't know. But to me, it read like
I
he
think it's very
destroyed
open ended.
Necronomicon.
He
Yeah.
didn't
It's
have
like
an answer, which is smart.
yeah. It's like to me, it's like well, it's because it wasn't supposed to be a franchise anyways.
Yeah,
But like when I'm looking at, it, I'm like, it seems to me it's like yeah, like burning Necronomicon like ended the stuff with the Deadites that were currently turned, but the fact that the evil comes through the house means it doesn't mean the evil's gone.
yeah,
So I just found like I was watching, I'm like that makes the ending like double fucked. Like
yeah.
it's really screwed up because even if the evil didn't come after him, like he might still be screwed.
I always like to interpret it as like that evil that follows through with the camera is not as strong as everyone thinks it is, unless the book's been activated. Because like you see that stuff is a lot of shots before they do the reciting, and it's like, well, maybe it would just be like it would fuck them up or be like a ghost charging you, but not do any real damage. But
Yeah,
who knows? I like that it's open ended. I wouldn't want answers to the question. That would just kind of piss me off. And that's what I feel like a lot of stuff like that. You do have some director telling you the answer to it nowadays. And it's like, hey, man, don't do that. You're
I can
leaving it
figure it out on
open
my
for a
own.
reason. But yeah, or like I don't want to figure it out. Like I like the idea of not knowing.
Yeah,
And that's one of the best things about the film. And like you said, this wasn't supposed to be a franchise. It benefits from being its own solo film, but the coolest thing about the film is that it does set up enough stuff, like the monologue about, oh, I killed my wife and stuff like that. And the end where he does get attacked by whatever the camera's following. Like you have things that can say, we could always do another one if we wanted to, but we don't need to. And that's what's smart about a lot of films, especially in the 80s, that do that. I mean, there's
yeah,
some that like you could argue the shock value at the end of Friday the 13th. It's a great scene, but it almost ruins the movie because it's like, well, you almost have to follow up on it.
yeah. You have to do
You,
something.
you don't want things to feel like it's needed, but you could go further. I love that in a film.
So I know we're not talking about Friday the 13th, but like with that, it's like they kind of like fuck themselves because they were trying at the end they're like, oh, we're gonna have this final jump scare, but then
Yeah,
they're gonna be like, oh, well, there wasn't a boy, you just fell off the boat, we watched you basically watch you fall off the boat.
dude,
So it's like, oh, he's not actually
I
there.
I don't want to get into Friday. I'll
Yeah,
go on
we'll
forever.
be here for 5 hours.
Yeah,
That's why we deliberately didn't choose Friday.
yeah, I don't want to do that.
So
I just like my I love the franchise, but
yeah.
that's why I think Evil Dead is the perfect franchise film. It's a film that didn't need a franchise but capitalized on it. Nightmare, the franchise almost ruins the movies because it so much stupid crap happens where it's like I don't need it. Halloween, the franchise almost ruins the first movie because everything being connected takes so much away from it. Every time they
Its continuity
further,
is fucked too.
yeah, there's three different continuities, and besides the remake right now,
And
or not the
there's
remake,
not even time travel. They didn't even fuck it up with time travel. They just decided, hey, we're not going to do this anymore, and then
yeah,
switch to something
and it's
else,
like besides the new continuation with the 2018 movie,
which is awesome.
everything just ends so badly. Whether it's the resurrection timeline, whether
Yikes!
it's the goddamn Thorn trilogy timeline, like
There's
everything that
no
happens.
concrete, good, satisfying finale to any version of the timeline in that franchise,
No, 100%. The new one that came out, like who knows
unless
if
we
it's
ignore
who
Resurrection.
knows if it's going to happen again? I do. Who knows if
I
it
tried
happens
to.
again? You don't
That's
feel
the
like
thing I'm
things
most
get
scared
a
about with the new
finale.
Halloween movies is that I'm afraid that they're like, oh man, Halloween 2018 was lit, and like watch Halloween Kills will be really great, and then they'll just fuck it up with
And
Halloween
that's the
Ends.
problem with franchises. Things aren't meant to be franchises sometimes. In Evil Dead, you're not follow like you're following Ash, and you couldn't
Yeah,
have the film without Ash, but you have the lore. You have the Book of the Dead. The Book of the Dead is the star. If you don't have that history there, you have nothing to it. Michael Myers as an entity is not enough to continue an entire franchise. I'll watch the hell out of whatever comes out with his name attached to it. Don't get me wrong, but there's a reason Halloween 3 came out. It's because we don't need to continue that and it feels unnecessary. So let's start new. Didn't
yeah,
work well. Let's go back to Mike. Okay, cool. But with the Book of the Dead, you have a constant evil that could always be brought up at any random time. Go
yeah.
after that. Sometimes a premise is more important than an
And
entity.
and the nice thing about the whole just the concept of Evil Dead and the franchise with the Necronomicon and all that stuff is you can go a lot of places because the nice thing about like the cool thing about like the main franchise, at least the first, I'll say like the first two, is they only deal with part of the stuff that's in the Book of the Dead. I mean, like
Yes.
we're not there yet, but Ash versus Evil Dead brings up a whole bunch of other shit that's not even thought about in the first film or even the
Yeah.
second film. So there's a lot. There's huge potential for a lot of awesome ideas, which they do explore in Ash versus Evil Dead. And hell, even in Army of Darkness, they take it a little bit differently.
Yeah,
But
I
I
think
think
they
the nice,
flesh out the evil the most in Army of Darkness until
yeah,
the show.
I mean, I think the nice thing about Evil Dead, the first one, is you can watch this movie and just watch this movie
Yeah.
because really the franchise
Simplicity
itself,
is the way you put it from the beginning. It's like
yeah,
this film states you can do so much with simplicity, but you could always create more. What's
yeah,
better in a film than that?
yeah. And I mean, like this one has a beginning and an end. Like it ends the movie. I mean, like it's an open ended ending, but it's still an ending.
Yeah.
It's not a sequel tease. The franchise doesn't begin till Evil Dead 2 because Evil Dead 2 has the sequel tease.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the only doesn't ruin the movie or anything, but like I don't like cliffhangers in movies because it feels like it makes the film less singular.
yeah,
And I don't like having that at the end of the film. But it's, I mean, two is still my favorite, but I like a film to feel complete. Whether it's a sequel or anything, I like a film to feel like it's its own entity and I can watch it by itself.
yeah,
And that's why Evil Dead is so strong because, like you said, there's a harsh difference between open ended and sequel bait.
yeah,
One is necessary for finishing a franchise, and the other is just good at making your mind work.
yeah. I mean,
I
like
like
even
thinking, I
yeah,
like using my brain.
yeah. I mean, like even like you were bringing up Halloween earlier. Like again, like a good comparison is like Halloween's ending is open. It is an open ending. It doesn't require a sequel though. Like the movie ends, but it leaves you with a lingering open conclusion rather than a hardcore like we know Michael Myers is dead conclusion. Um, and that's interesting. And that's another thing like about this movie. Like the ending of this movie is iconic. Like the whole hit, the evil rushing through the house, breaking doors down, and taking out Ash, and ending with him screaming, and then cutting to that fucking goofy music is iconic.
Something that's emulated and that like a lot nowadays with like modern horror films too. Like the whole idea of tonal clash with like a constant terrifying image and then shifting over to like an upbeat, goofy song. Like a lot of modern directors like James Wan, Jordan Peele will do stuff like that because it showcases a shift in tension. It's like it's unnerving.
Yeah. It's
And
like it's
like
one of those things where it makes you sit there in the theater and just like stare at the screen for a second. You're like, oh, that's fucked.
oh, 100%.
And even the director's like, oh, what you're scared by this? It's just like
Yeah.
la di da. But also, I was sitting there, I usually like when I finish a movie, like I don't sit through the credits. But as I was getting up to get all my stuff ready and then come upstairs, I sat like the movie was still playing, and the kind of fucked up thing about it is that song plays for like a minute maybe,
Yeah.
and it gradually shifts into the terrifying score,
Yeah.
and it's just like that's cool. I'd never noticed that before. And
Don't you miss
that
that?
yeah, and it brings it back to being scary.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong. Something's nice about like having a movie end, having a little bit of score, and then some cheesy song or whatever that like fits the decade. Like,
Yeah, bro.
I
Seal
love.
Kiss from a Rose, bro.
Don't bring up that song unless you want me to sing it. But like, I love stuff like, Friday Part 6, where like they have The Man Without a Mask by Alice Cooper plays at the end of the film because it's perfectly in tone with the movie. And like sometimes
Yeah.
it's nice, but sometimes it's good to have a real horror movie end with just like a little bit of scare right at the end. Like, yeah, it's tough, ain't it? Yeah, we're not happy anymore. Neither are you. Like, that's sick.
And now
I
you're gonna be
love the
stuck with
score in
that
these
image.
films.
Now you're gonna be stuck with that image of just the evil just rushing Ash.
There's nothing
So
better than an image that sticks out at the end of a movie for good or less. Like, remember when I was talking about Sleepaway Camp with you? It's like I didn't love the movie.
I'm talking about a fucking ending.
I didn't love the movie, but like the
Wow.
ending shot is like terrifying to
Horrifying.
me. Yeah, I was like, I hate that.
Yeah.
Mostly because like the mask is just so off-putting.
Because it
It's
doesn't
not
look right.
it's
And
not
it's cool.
yeah, it doesn't look super real, but it looks real enough to be disturbing. And
Yeah.
it's like,
And then the
oh
music
man.
start like it cuts and the ending is a freeze frame image over that with the music playing. It's just like
Yeah, I
okay.
hate that. For some reason that
I
ending
love that.
that end yeah, I hate it for because I love it. I hate it that it works so well, but it's you could almost like watch the last half of the movie and be like, this movie's fantastic. Because like the rest of it is
Yeah.
like,
I was like, I'm not gonna lie, that's a movie where like the ending kind of like makes the movie better.
yeah,
A lot better.
if you didn't have that movie in that way, I don't think it'd be even like nearly a good movie.
I mean,
But
I
that
like
ending just
I like
skyrockets
the
it.
off kilter nature to that movie, but it's there's some stuff in it where it's just like
Yeah.
technically bad, and some of the acting is I'm so atrocious.
Yeah.
So like I like that's a movie that's tough to watch. When I watched the first time, I'm like, why do people love this so much? And then you get to the final like 30 minutes of the movie, and like bodies start dropping, and that finale happens, and you're like, oh, okay. But yeah,
I think that's what's so crazy about a lot of films in the 80s. And like that film is very similar to Evil Dead in that manner because like a lot of characters aren't characters, a lot of them are stereotypes, bodies just drop. They really stick into humor with stuff like Sleepaway Camp. Like there's humor in Evil Dead, but it never takes away the horror. But in
yeah,
Sleepaway Camp, it's like there's so much tonal shift that it just is off-putting. Scenes don't hit the same way, and like, yeah, I
yeah.
understand it, but
I mean,
that's why you need a film like Sleepaway Camp to showcase why Evil Dead is so good.
you
I'm
need a
not
movie
saying
like
Sleepaway
Sleepaway
Camp
Camp
is,
to
is like the shits are like not a good time. I would definitely recommend it, but like that ending is super prominent with that film, and without it, it would make or break the film if it wasn't there. If you didn't even have the ending for Evil Dead, I'd still walk out of here being like, I love that movie. But the ending
yeah,
is just the final cliff note saying, all right, what's there not to love?
yeah.
Tree rape.
Another movie where it keeps it just tells you, both movies just tell you how important tone is for different reasons.
100%.
Yeah.
Like, and they do tone
One in the
similarly,
good
but
and one in the bad.
you know,
Yeah, I mean, like again, like I don't want to keep like harping on Sleepaway Camp because this isn't about Sleepaway Camp, but like Sleepaway Camp has like a really important reveal that is completely ruined by a performance by the
Yeah.
aunt. Like it's that bad.
Oh
It's like
yeah.
it's charming earlier, just because it's like what the fuck, but when you get to that reveal, it's like you can't have that when you're
But
having
that
that reveal.
I think like we don't want to talk about Sleepaway Camp Friday or how
We'll get to it
the
eventually.
but the reason that like Evil
It's
Dead is so
comparisons.
good is because Evil Dead hits on so many things that are prominent, especially in 80s horror that just capitalizes. Hey, not the strongest characters, make do with what we can and make the best out of it. A lot of horror tropes that are synonymous with the genre. We take that, we take it to the next level. Gore, animatronics, it's in there and it's prominent, but it doesn't take away from the storytelling. There's so many things that are staples of especially 80s horror that Evil Dead does and just knocks it out of the park. It's tough to not compare it to other films because a lot of times they do it better or they do it just as good as the classics.
Yeah,
And I
I
think
agree.
that's why I always come back saying, I love this film. I love how it does this and that because it just reminds me of everything I like about that genre in that decade and says, yeah, this is just awesome. Like
Yeah,
I said, the second one I think really lends itself more into the humor and lends itself into being more creative, and that's why I like it more. But the first one is an awesome, well-structured film that has everyone saying, "Yeah, I kind of want to check that out again or come back to it." I mean, well, I can't say everyone. I know some people differ on that, especially female viewers. I've come to learn this film with females very drastic, different tone, not just for like the tree scene that I 100% can understand being like a make or break it, but just in general, like I put this movie on sometimes to go to sleep, and I'm like, all right, it's good. It's yeah, I know it sounds weird. Don't give me that face, but like
dude,
I've had this,
I fall asleep to slasher movies all the time.
but
It's
like
not a big
I
deal.
put this on a lot, and I fall asleep, and like my girlfriend will be like, you could put on anything. You could put on anything. Every time I hear one of them scream or something, because when they yell, they really yell, and they don't yell for like a second. They'll
They're
have
going
yelling
for
for
it.
a constant 2.5 minutes. It's like when I hear that, I wake up at night and I get so angry at you. It's like I sit there and I'm like, that really sucks because I'm still sound asleep or I don't know a goddamn thing.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about this movie. I think we've covered pretty much everything that we could probably cover for now. Um,
Yeah, see
it's just
it.
a classic movie, and like yeah, there's some aspects about it that haven't aged well. Some of the makeup isn't great. It's a movie that definitely is of its era. I can see why some people might not be afraid of this movie, and I get that.
But be
But
put off.
based purely off technical craft, the cinematography, the score, the sound editing, all that stuff. Like yeah, it's not especially sound editing is not the greatest in the world, but for the budget, it's really good. And especially the cinematography. That is one of the biggest reasons to watch this movie, just because it is such a wildly, awesomely shot film.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
it's
I
so
remember talking
inventive.
to you beforehand about one of my favorite shots is when Cheryl's screaming and Ash is holding her, and the only light you have is the headlights on them, and they're surrounded by darkness. It's like
Yeah.
that is a perfect shot to encapsulate this mood. It's almost surprising they didn't make a cover out of that for like the image,
Yeah.
because you could do it, but they didn't. And I like it more because it isn't that. If it was, maybe it would kind of not sit as well, but
Yeah.
I think that's a perfect shot that you wish you could have in a film. One shot that describes the film and everything you need to know.
I agree. But yeah, I mean, it's a movie that I think every horror fan or anybody who's getting into horror should watch at some point easily. I mean, the franchise in general is one to watch. But yeah, I just wanted to ask you what if you were gonna all ratings are arbitrary. It doesn't really matter. But if you were gonna give this something, a rating out of 5 out of 10, whatever you want to use for a scale, letter grade, what would you give this?
I really don't like rating like super biased films because it's just like not a fair rating.
Yeah,
It's like, oh, what do you give it? 10 out of 10. But like that's to me, it's like every rating's biased.
it's
But
all
like for
subjective.
fan favorite films, it's like it feels so unnecessary because I'm only coming at it from a perspective like of a super fan. Like I went and brought the Necronomicon to Bruce Campbell to sign it. I waited 3 hours in line to get that signed. The people in front of me were somebody that had a stone from the actual set of
Cabin.
Evil Dead. Yeah, from the
Yeah,
first cabin. And like I wouldn't go to that length of something. And that's after I had a super vacation with my girlfriend. I was like, can we please go do this? And she's like, fuck, come on, it's supposed to be about us, but come on, something for me, please. I want this. Like I love this movie, and it doesn't feel fair because I'll go through all the lengths of stupid shit like that, but it's not a perfect movie. And if I had to unbiasedly give a score, I'd probably say it's like an A, not like an A plus, because there are some things that do weigh it down, not just of the decade, but just in general feel unnecessary. Knowing what Sam Raimi could do with films after it, you think, okay, cool. Maybe this is a little excessive or not necessary, but this is still a fantastic movie. The best way to describe the film is do what we can with what we're given. And that's why I love the movie. The second one, personally, my favorite, and I think really says the most about what Sam Raimi can do as a director. People a lot of the time say the second one's so good and it retells the first one. Don't even watch the first movie. That's a super injustice because a lot of things won't hit the same if you don't watch the first movie. You won't understand the tone or what it means to get into this franchise without watching the first one. I don't think it's just a good movie or like something that like, oh, if you like Evil Dead, definitely watch the first one. It's a necessity if you want to get in this franchise to not just
Don't skip it.
not just see where Ash starts off and how different of a character he is. Like, if you watch this movie, it's not the same character at all from Ash versus Evil Dead from the end of the series.
Yeah.
But to see how it progresses is not just necessary, but like it's endearing. You get to see why people love this character. If you watch the show, him being a misogynistic asshole, it gets kind of old. Watch the first one and see how the character grew, how he became a joke, but also a fun-loving guy, and really see what Bruce Campbell can give to this role and really take a chance and say, fuck it. I don't care. I want to get into this film. I want to get into this franchise. I'm watching the first one.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. I'll say this, like subjectively, I mean, it's all subjective, doesn't really matter. But like, if I want to just go based purely off of just my enjoyment factor of the movie, I have to give it like, I agree. I'd say an A. Like, I think you're probably right. It's definitely not like I remember I used to be like, this is my favorite of the Evil Dead franchise, but after we watched, I'm like, yeah, there's some problems for sure. If I was trying to be in any way kind of objective, just looking at it as a movie, I mean, it'd probably be around an 8. Like, it's got some real like yeah, I like the characters are likable, but there are some of them that like literally just don't get anything to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they literally don't get anything to do. And the only character that really gets something to like truly gnaw on is Ash, and even that, some of it's kind of But as just a pure enjoyment factor, I mean, I have nostalgia for it from when I was a teenager, and it was a blast to watch. And even rewatching it, like these, like I was telling you before the show, like I got hit with fucking 3 of the jump scares, and it got me again. So like there's definitely an aspect of this movie that does keep me hooked. That is just like, yeah, I'm not gonna say that I don't enjoy this movie. It's great. It's just a great movie, and like it is something that it is a landmark film for horror. You know, we had like the Herschel Gordon Lewis gore films of the 60s and all that stuff, but like there's been gore in movies from before this, but this was like a different level for a lot of people. And it really did pave the way for certain things. And just again, like the technical craft, like you can't deny it. It's just a really well directed movie. So yeah, I would definitely say an A is fair on both counts, but if I really had to take the piss out of it, it'd probably be about an 8.5.
I definitely agree because it's just like there are some things that don't hold up or things that could be changed. There's just something nice about like watching an old film that is low budget because like not only is it fun to watch, but it's also inspiring. Seeing
Makes me feel
things
like I
that
can make a movie.
yeah, and not just like feeling you can make a movie, but it's like there's something that just feels like kind of not sickening, but it just feels like an overabundance of films that not just feel too polished, but like overly crafted. There's too much, it's too cluttered.
It's
You
too
get
slick.
yeah, and you get a nice simple horror film where like the director just put his all into it and some things don't work out, but he really tried. Like sometimes that's better. And like I look forward to that in a film way more than seeing something that's like 2.5 hours of just super polished and like driven garbage that just meanders. I don't know.
I mean, for a movie of this budget, it is an undeniably ambitious movie.
Yeah, and
Even with the constellations they had to make due to budget, like they still went for some things. Like some of the shots towards the end of like them, they're doing shots above through the rafters of Ash walking through the
yeah,
cabin. The shot of him walking up the stairs through the stairs. It's like there's some amazing shots as
uh,
the film goes through.
I want to show this first. I said I got him like to autograph the Necronomicon. I always look at it, but like, it's not like a super detailed Necronomicon. It's just like somebody's like shitty replica.
Mhm.
So I never really like opening it, but like I like checked it out right before you came back, and I never realized that like when he signed it, he wrote "burn this" on it, and I was like, oh
That's
man,
awesome.
that's awesome.
That's
I
really
never
cool.
burn it though because I'd fucking tear up. I love Evil Dead. I know my friend here loves it just as much.
Damn
And I
right.
hope that you've enjoyed our conversation. And I hope you tune in for other films we talk about because, just with most horror films, it it does just feel great to get through, have an experience, and feel like you get a huge impassioned viewpoint on stuff like this, and you want to talk about it. Evil Dead's a great starting point, and I can't wait to keep it going. And thank you so much for listening and joining us. And I hope you come back next time. Thanks.